Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up discussion today. We have Echo being bought by $375 million by Coinbase, and crypto's favorite podcast, Up Only, coming back. Kobe and Ledger will be back for, I believe, 8 episodes after Coinbase also bought the NFT, I think, for $25 million. So the highest paid streamers in the world now. So we'll get into some of those details in a bit. We'll also be talking a little bit on prediction markets as their volume pass election highs. So we'll do a little bit of a reflection there. Finally, today we'll do a bit of a portfolio chat. As usual, we'll also do get into the price action on crypto and NFTs, get a sense of what we're feeling about the market in general. Feels like a little bit of sideways today, so we'll discuss that in a moment. And before we get to all the stuff, just a reminder, friends, nothing that we say is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. We do not know anything for sure, so please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment as always. With that out of the way, Legendary, it's Tuesday. It is the 21st of October. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Interesting day in the market. I feel like the sideways choppy action is one thing, but the Echo one is not only a massive deal by numbers, but it's also going to be interesting to see what that means for Coinbase, what that means for our space. It's a platform that the both of us have been using, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts on that. I had a bit of a chance to reflect on it. Obviously, it's like very fresh news. We had some rumors already circulating, I feel like yesterday-ish, but we did get the confirmation just like 1 hour-ish before the show started, which is good because I want to discuss that.
Yes. I think it's interesting. It's pretty cool. We saw, in a similar way, what was it? It was Breakout by Trader Main, was prop trading firm. Was acquired by Kraken not long ago. So looks like, everyone knows crypto's here to stay now at a minimum. The price action might not be what people want right here, right now, but looks like there could be a bit of a spending spree going on at the moment, a bit of an M&A extravaganza. So yeah, we'll discuss that in more detail as we get into the headlines today. Anything else going on, Ledge? You said, we're going to talk a bit about portfolio chat today, how we're thinking about things. Any instinctive ideas? You mentioned one of the best signals that we get is just like inbound, right? Like inbound interest in stuff. How are you? What are you experiencing at the moment?
A ton of inbound, a ton of fundraisers going on, advisorial questions. I feel like everyone's like rushing a bit to get money into their projects or to get things out, which is something that I that feels a bit toppy to me. It feels like a bit overheated or a bit like FOMO driven. That's the one thing I noticed. But you noticed something else, which is that a lot of projects, you said before the show, are hiring, and also very, very reputable companies are hiring in crypto at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. I think the inbound's always you can take inbound two ways when you notice the inbound. I remember we shared with the audience in January of this year where we spoke about how the inbound went crazy, and it meant we were at the top, or more or less, in that kind of mania. And the reason why I think that's the case is because it means that everyone else is realizing that their time is running out. Like they must go to market now. They must secure the capital now. Like they must raise money right here, right now.
Sure.
And that's why I just think you've got to be more cautious than ever at these moments when like capital's flowing a lot. Everyone is asking for your money. I think the bar, I don't know if you necessarily need to say the bar goes higher. You should have a high bar anyway. But the filter has to be as strong as ever, I think, is kind of my point. The bar should not be reduced. You've got to keep that bar exactly where it is, assuming that you have a high bar. Any reflections there, Ledge?
What do you mean by the what do you mean by the bar and the filter? Like what specific bar and filter are you referencing?
I mean, okay, this is what I mean. I think more and more companies will offer you what looks like increasingly good. Well, two things will happen. One, more and more companies, maybe the valuations start to creep up
Yeah.
because valuations start creeping up because everyone thinks that people want to spend money. So that is one thing that will happen. And you have to yourself fight the FOMO to
Gotcha.
participate in various things when you assess that offer on the table, you say, no, this valuation is too high. Like it is too high. Maybe you still want to participate. I don't know if it's a great thing, but you've got to keep your standards of assessment pretty high. And if they fail, if they're under the bar in that respect, then it's too expensive.
Gotcha.
Because if the market turns, then I think that's difficult. So I think that's one of the ways I'm thinking about it. The other way is that you know, as you become in a slightly more prominent position, I think there are more and more people making sweeter deals. So on the one hand, maybe valuations creep higher. On the other hand, I think there are more and more people who want to attract you with attractive deals. And maybe this is not entirely relevant for everyone, but just so people understand how it works, you've got to keep the bar up. Like just because something is really, really great and maybe it's a free money opportunity potentially, like you've just got to assess things on that. It could be a great deal, but you've got to assess it on the normal merits and just decide if that would ordinarily be something you would want to do, that you want to be involved in, and just keep the head screwed on, basically. Legendary. I think that is what I'm saying. What do you think?
Yeah, very much agree with that. I think it's in a period like that, I think it's super important to like even increase your due diligence on projects and people raising. Like my checkbook was, I would say, pretty open throughout most of the year to do investments, but it's not closed yet, but it's definitely a more cautious approach to investing, because I still think that staying as liquid as you can is the most important thing, and there will be very sweet opportunities coming. So I don't think that this is the time where you go around and invest everything that you can in projects, pre-sales, deposits, and lock up capital. I think it's now rather the time to be a bit more conservative with that.
Yeah, I agree. Having said that, I have been thinking. I have been like, we've been expressing like a reasonably bearish sentiment for some time here.
Mm-hmm.
The longer we can stay at this level and things seem settled, then maybe the more I feel confident that we could that the way it's not that the 4-year cycle is dead. The more I'm thinking that the asset itself is just not going to behave in the way that it has behaved before, with like violent drawdowns.
Yeah.
Given how violent October, the liquidations of around 10 days ago what were. But bear in mind, I haven't been around for that many cycles, right? But if I compare with 2021, and I know that this was the case in previous ones as well, where the drawdowns were really violent. Think about the way everything like cascaded down. Like say ETH went to 4.9K or something, and it was like crashing down to 4, then crashing down to 3, crashing down to 2, crashing beneath 2K. And it was just like calamity after calamity after calamity. And then with FTX being, maybe the pinnacle bad point where everyone realized, oh my God, what the hell have we done? Like this industry is, with 3AC being levered up so much and FTX like stealing customer funds to do whatever they were doing with it. It was just like calamity after calamity. I'm not really sensing that style of. I'm just not really sensing that at the moment, and I'm kind of waiting, and obviously sometimes I think you need to the whole point of being risk on is you've got to be risk on before other people. But in a way, I'm kind of comfortable here getting confirmation that there isn't a calamity. I think that's the question I'm trying to find an answer to. Was there? We know that there was a calamity last week or 10 days ago, like clearly. Besides, like, do we actually know? Can we put our finger on what the calamity was? Do we know how many people got cleared out in that situation yet? Binance doing record, like, I don't know what you'd call it, rebates, refunds. Did the number go up to 700 mil? I think potentially like 400. It was at least $400 million they were just giving back to people who lost money on the exchange, which is, yeah, that's it's pretty significant. I think the number might have even moved higher. So I'm kind of just wanting to see what exactly was the calamity there. Are there any follow-on calamities? Because if not, then I think the asset's kind of just behaving in a different way, where the volume the volatility, sorry, goes down now because it's a more mature asset class. So still a question, even in that scenario. Okay, well, is that the one that you invest in to get the most money right here, right now? Yeah, those are my thoughts, Ledge.
Are you worried that we haven't seen like any big blow up from the liquidation? Was it 11 days ago on the 10th of October? That basically everything is continuing business as usual.
I wouldn't say I'm worried. If anything, it's good that it seemed, because my point is that the last cycle that I was participating in, it felt like things went south really fast on a relative basis, like really fast, like cascade down, calamity. It just doesn't, you don't really get that vibe anymore. Despite the disaster, despite the disaster of that day, which it clearly was a calamity, it doesn't feel like it's a cascading calamity, at least not right now, because there's no other details as to what happened. So I'm, if anything, kind of increasingly optimistic the longer it goes on, and it appears that maybe people are fine, or even if people are not fine, the market doesn't really mind, or it hasn't affected the market too much. And maybe some people have got cleared out and wiped out, but the market's Bitcoin's like minus a few percent basically. So if anything, I'm the opposite of not worried, but I would kind of just want calamity confirmation in a way, if that makes sense.
And what would give you that confirmation? Like, is there a certain time period when you're like, okay, it's November and we don't have any blow up, anything, and we can continue? Or is there a specific thing you're looking at? Is it appetite to go back and increase the leverage slider again, or just gut feeling?
I think it's just a gut feeling of reading things, and yeah, I don't have a concrete answer to that. I think the other part of this picture, I think, is the amount of a new holder base getting established at around these price levels. I think a lot of people who are up a lot are deciding to rotate out. And so, what am I looking at? I'm looking at, well, is this price range starting to become like a new floor where a lot of new buyers are coming in here and a lot of the old buyers are rotating out, which means, in some ways the cost basis for this asset just becomes way, way higher. And people start to think, well, this starts to look cheap at some point versus other stuff, particularly if gold is going to continue in the way that that's going. So, no concrete answer really, but I guess it's just to kind of keep assessing, keep feeling the market out in that way, and seeing whether it gets like comfortable here. It feels like it's been a bit comfortable in the last few days. So what's your reflections on any of that?
Yeah, I probably feel similar to you. I don't think that I have a specific metric that I wanted to look at. It's like mostly trying to get a sense, get an intuition from the timeline of where we are at. So I'm pretty much in the same boat with you, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Having said that, that's still That's still caveated with the general take that this is late. Like
Yeah.
I still think we're late. And one of the wisest things I have read recently to try to keep stuff is, the later you go, you can still take more risk, but do it with less. I think what happens is the later you go, people start taking risk with more. And, that's when people got caught out. And that's what maybe caught people out even last week or so, right? You want to be taking risk with less, not with more. If you want to do things in a conservative way and maybe you can never guarantee anything, but just preserve some capital as well. Okay, good stuff. A bit of a rambling beginning to begin. Start some general market thoughts here, but let's get into the price action as usual to get you up to speed with everything that's going on in the market. And then we'll hit some of the headlines as well. So starting with the majors as usual, Bitcoin is down 2% to $108,000. ETH is down 3% to 3.8K. So there has been a bit of movement here today. BNB is down 3% as well to $1,076. XRP is down a couple of percent to $2.40. Solana is down 3% to $185. And Hyperliquid is down 6% back to 35. Sui is down 5% to $2.50. So we should actually talk a little bit about Hyperliquid Legendary because we were chatting about it in our group yesterday, but we'll do that in a bit. Meme coin side of things, Doge is down 3% to 19 cents. Pepe is down 5. Pengu's down 5. Trump's down a couple. Bonk is down 5. SPX down 6. Flocky down 7. Anything major here? Tibber on virtuals is up 20%. Again, that's up 91% on the week now. Fartcoin's down another 4%. What else have we got here that is meaningful? Rect is down 5. Mog is down 6. Kind of all trending down in that respect. 4-5% down, kind of mirroring the major move down as well, just a bit more pronounced. Getting into the headlines themselves, as I said, apologies, there was no snapshot today. I was caught up with some stuff, couldn't get it out. But the important things are Echo has been bought, the crowdfunding platform by prominent investor Kobe has been bought for $375 million by Coinbase, and they bought the Up Only NFT, which is their podcast NFT, which if anyone buys it, they are buying one more season of the famous podcast, which was very, very popular in the last cycle, but thought the hosts were retired. They'll not. They'll have to come back now. Bought for $25 million, I believe. So we'll discuss that both from an investing perspective, as Echo has been purchased by Coinbase, a corporate perspective, maybe even a media perspective as well. Legendary. There's probably a media angle there, as we also saw ThreadGuy announce the Polymarket deal yesterday. So lots to talk about there. Prediction market. Talking of Polymarket, prediction market volume went past election highs. We should spend a bit of time talking about that whole vertical and consider what is happening there. And then finally, we might do a little bit more portfolio stuff as we draw towards the close of today's show. But anything else that is catching your attention around the market, Ledge? Those are the headlines we're going to talk about today. Was there anything else you saw that you found interesting?
On the NFT side of things, there's maybe one thing to point out. It is the Chimpers flywheel with Chimp strategy. We pointed out yesterday is doing quite well. We had a massive pump yesterday. Chimpers are still flat. They didn't give that back at 0.9 ETH, up 16% on the week. So that is very, very lovely, very good to see. Apart from that, honestly, most of my thoughts have been around the Kobe stuff, and especially trying to put that into perspective with some other things. Like there's been the comparisons to the Joe Rogan podcast and how much that is an episode. And even I think my favorite comparison that I looked at is if you look at TV shows and how much the best paid stars received. You have top of the list Sarah Jessica Parker for the last season of Sex and the City at 3 M's per episode, and then like for a double lead, so to speak, it's actually the morning show on Apple TV Plus, which I quite like. which is Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, both at 2 mil each per episode. And basically, if you look at the 25 million, I get it, it's also probably part of the Echo deal as well to get to 400 million and have maybe some sort of like advertising or integration plans going along. But still, it's extremely impressive to see that this much is being paid for crypto distribution, which is able to compete at the highest levels of basically Hollywood entertainment. So that speaks a lot to how far our industry actually has gotten.
Yeah, indeed. Why don't we just talk about that now then? Because we're getting into it there. Just in terms of some other details that people might find helpful, or just the TLDR, Coinbase struck a deal to buy on-chain investment platform Echo for 375 million, marking its 8th purchase this year, according to Wall Street Journal. It's using a mixture of cash and stocks to fund the deal, the Wall Street Journal said. And obviously this is founded by, it's funny reading his name on the block rather than seeing it. Obviously this is prominent investor Kobe, aka Jordan Fish. He said, I certainly didn't think Echo would be sold to Coinbase, but here we are today. Coinbase bought Echo for $375 million. In a longer message, he had this to say. Let me find it here. Well, actually, let's say what Brian Armstrong said first. Brian Armstrong, founder of Coinbase, said, on-chain capital formation is a vital and unique part of the crypto ecosystem. Excited to be adding Echo and Sonar to Coinbase to give our customers new token access opportunities. Kobe said Echo will remain a standalone platform under its current brand for now, but it will integrate Sonar's public sale product into Coinbase and likely introduce ways for founders to access investors. So there are two aspects to this, right? There's two aspects. The first is Echo, which is the kind of crowdfunding raising platform, which many people have used to kind of broaden the distribution of the investments into their project. Second is Sonar, this public sale platform, which has been used by Plasma and is now going to be used by MegaETH. So both are interesting. What are your reflections here, Legendary, on the product itself? Like, what do we think about the products?
I like Echo a lot. I think Kobe's intention to give obviously more access to people to VC like deals is a very good one. I also like how Echo played out over time to be structured in investment groups where you have sometimes VCs, sometimes prominent traders having their own deal flow routed through Echo and then giving access to people as a result of that, which is even very helpful to basically benchmark that against the rest of the deal flow that you get, if you get deal flow, or even to get a sense of what's going on. Like, you don't need to invest in those companies, but having a sense of what deals on the table, how valuations look like, how cliffs, unlocks, etc. are looking like is very helpful. And the way that Echo is structured is that by the terms of use, you're not allowed to talk about that. So if you do a deal on Echo, you're not to share those terms and be like, oh, I invested in XYZ, this was the valuation, put in 10K, put in 50K, yada, yada, yada. You're not to do that. So if you want to have access to that info, you sign up and you try to get into those groups. And I found that very helpful. I also did a couple deals, I think, via Echo, not too many, maybe 2, 3, something like that. And it also provides you with the opportunity to be like, oh, a company's raising, there's an Echo deal. I can reach out to the founders and be like, is there a separate round to this that's not on Echo? Do you need help with the raise? Is there some advisory work to be done? Are you hiring? Whatever your interest might be, it just gives you a good sense of what's going on. And having like this access sort of democratized, I find very good. Now, with that being said, and Kobe has made the post saying that, where is it? Let me get it up on screen. Yada, yada, yada. Echo will remain a standalone platform under its current brand for now, but we will integrate Sonar's public sale product into Coinbase and likely introduce new ways for founders to access investors and for investors to access opportunities into Coinbase itself. Now, that would be the ideal vision, obviously, that some of the stuff that Coinbase is investing in then also becomes investable via Echo. The side that has me maybe worried a bit is to see how it's actually going to play out in reality, in terms of, will this become a more corporate Coinbase product? And we've seen issues with Coinbase, with accounts being frozen, etc. And that's something that that would be my worry with it. Like, if I had to play devil's advocate, that it becomes basically so corporate and it becomes so much integrated in Coinbase that this like democratizing access to investment vision is like slowly vanishing away over time. The optimist in me would say that no, this is not what's happening. And actually the deal flow will get broader and broader, and it will be accessible to even more people, because obviously Coinbase has insane distribution and insane user base, and it is helpful to proliferate the original mission that Kobe had for Echo. Time will tell how it plays out.
Yeah, that's a good point on the kind of Coinbase operation of things. I think, in a way, it's always seemed to be more clunky. Like I'm almost certain that Echo is not doing anything like without a high bar or without a high integrity. Like they're doing everything properly. But somehow when you do stuff with Coinbase, like you just get hit with things all the time. Like you just get frozen, you just get hit. I'm sure they're trying to do things with a high bar too, but it's like, is the bar too high? Is it just something about the process? So yeah, hopefully that stays smooth, I guess. I think it's probably going to be fine. The next part of it, the next part of the acquisition, and I think it must have been part of it, as you said. So 375 mil for Echo, 25 mil for the up only thing, maybe, to come to that 400 number. Coinbase actually just tweeted 1 hour ago. Ultimately, these things should have, I think, would have been put together. If you have this tweet there, Ledge,
1 second.
I'll just share it in the private chat as well. But they said bringing back up only was just the warm up. We have acquired Echo, the leading on-chain capital raising platform. So maybe those two things are kind of connected. So just for people to know, Coinbase acquired Up Only, the Up Only NFT from Kobe for $25 million US dollars, in order to bring back the very popular podcast. I'll share the image of what do you get for the purchase of this.
Yeah, you gotta read this one. It's fun. The way it's worded, it's fun.
So it says one purchase of $25 million will buy you this coupon for one season of Up Only TV. The holder of this admission ticket can compel Kobe and Ledger into performing like monkeys 8 episodes of Up Only TV. It does not convey any sponsorship rights, and we are allowed to call you idiots for buying it, or ignore you completely with 0 mentions of your existence during our 8-episode season. We get to pick the guests, but if we like you, then we might ask you for some suggestions. So what do you think? Do you think there'll be no mention of Coinbase after all of this? No mention of Coinbase?
No, absolutely not. I mean, obviously, as part of the Echo deal, and Kobe is already talking about Coinbase and has been replying, has been pretty active. So I can't see this happening without any commentary on the Echo deal. The thing that I thought was interesting on top of that, maybe it's a funny side note, is there was a poly market on like, will Up Only return for another season, which did 10 mil in volume. And I think the chances were like get a couple percent. But someone pointed out that Kobe had that NFT originally listed for 10,000 ETH, aka 40 mil, but changed the price of that to discounted to 25 mil like 10-ish days ago. So if really? I didn't see that, but if you had seen it and you were like, wait, he's not gonna change the price because he's like struggling to get 25 mil. Maybe there's something being negotiated in the background. That would have been a beautiful bet to make on Polymarket, and some people did, and some people won big as a result of that. So, kudos to them.
That's like that is where I think that is exactly where prediction markets are kind of very interesting, where you read something or you read into something that is happening in real life, that is happening in plain sight, but you see it or you feel it or you understand it better than other people. That is exactly correct. Like, what would be the point in changing that number, right? If you did see that happen.
Yeah, exactly. This is where I think you can get an edge with prediction markets if you track stuff like that. Because even if it doesn't happen, but you do like a 20x opportunity, you do that 3 times, one of them will hit, one of these deals won't fall through. Maybe as a follow-up question for you, I saw Easy posting about Easy Eats Bodega. He was like, "Oh, I'm excited for the mention markets for when up only returns." So, what words will be said similar to you? How you can bet when JPow is giving a speech? Is he going to say this word? Is he going to say that word? Is that something like the mention market thing that I mean, I know you don't have the time for that, but do you find that conceptually interesting to be able to bet on those things? Or is it something where like, nah, this is actually getting to a point which you think is ridiculous?
I think it is conceptually interesting because it is new. And I like in crypto when we do net new things rather than repackaging something else. Like, for example, I don't particularly care for sports betting repackaged as prediction markets. Like, not that interesting. If I don't bet on sports normally, why would I bet on them in prediction markets? I'm sure for sports bettors, it might provide interesting ways to hedge. It might even provide some different ways to bet on the sport. But sports betting is sports betting, whether it's predicting, whether it's betting, like that's not interesting. It's not new. It's not a new vertical, at least not in my mind, although it might provide you with some new interesting options. Mention markets, I think that is kind of new. It is kind of new. It's kind of live. You can see how people might create a moment in time where people can kind of get excited about something. It creates a market out of something which didn't previously exist, I don't think. So that I am more conceptually interested in. As you say, I don't think it's something I'll be participating in aggressively. I do think it's interesting though, and that could be an interesting growth area for the reasons that I said, because it's interesting and new and fresh, and especially around that example you just gave, like Jay Powell is gonna be speaking today. What's gonna happen? Kobe and Ledger are gonna go live with one of the biggest guests in crypto. Like, what's gonna happen? You can see people finding that interesting and intriguing. So, yeah. What about you? Do you think the mention markets is a specifically interesting new thing, or do you have a different view?
Conceptually interesting, not something I would participate on. I would be mainly worried that at some point this is so easy to manipulate, see these odds, and obviously, not that Kobe would do that, but in some mention markets, I can see how that temptation would be there to do something like that. Also, not that
Sure.
JPO would do that. So it's too easy to manipulate for me to be wanting to participate in.
Yeah, fair. Okay. What did you want to say, since we've kind of merged into prediction markets conversation? You had some data to share with people about how prediction markets are actually maybe doing a lot more than people realize. So what do we need to know here? What are some of the numbers standing out to you? What should we be taking note of?
Yeah, Stats had this post, which I'm getting on screen, saying that prediction markets now are doing more volume than during the election. The takeover of the gambling space seems to be working. I truly expected it all to fade post-election. I was wrong. Hat tip to Tyler. With a weekly chart of prediction market notional volume, where we can see that we had this peak last year with a week with 2 billion volume, and ever since After that, it did go down. After the election, it did go down, but it was able to sustain very significant volumes, anywhere around, I would say, the 400 to 500-ish, 550-ish mil mark weekly. And now we are back. Now we are back and actually have crossed the week with more than 2 billion in volume, which is also mainly driven. I would say poly market has been pretty strong even after the election, but Kalshi has been getting more and more volume. And now together, it's basically almost a 50-50 split between Kalshi and poly market, having, and obviously there's like Limitless and Myriad and others, but the main drivers of volume are poly and Kalshi, having exceeded that $2 billion notional volume mark over a week, which is, it's an incredible amount of money to think of. Just putting that maybe into perspective, let me see if I get this up on screen to compare it to some data from online gambling. Gonna go to Tanzanite. Okay, my internet is lagging. But basically what Tanzanite does is it's looking at casino volume. And I know, for example, that Stake, being the biggest casino, they did 4 billion in obviously not in volume, they did way more in volume, but in profits on their end last year. And I think if you look at these volumes and you can see a billion a week on poly market, and they manage, and same on Calcium, they manage to sustain that, and they manage to go higher from that. And they have this, the sportsbook integration, which you are not interested in, I'm not interested in, but it's obviously a very popular one, that prediction markets could get to a point where they rival with the volume of the biggest casinos, like online casinos like Stake, and maybe even putting the pressure. That's something that we have been seeing on some of these online gambling platforms, that they integrate prediction markets on their end as well, and that maybe this line is becoming fuzzier over time. And ultimately, all of that is financial entertainment. Whether you do perps, you bet on something going up or down, you do prediction markets, mention markets, you gamble on blackjack, baccarat, slots, limbo, whatever. Maybe all of that will just blur and become a hyper gamblified financial entertainment platform that serves all of those quote unquote needs. Good comment by Coach. Getting paid for an opinion is one of the highest forms of dopamine. This will turn millions of people who would never usually bet into gamblers. Yeah, that's a good point. Everyone likes being right, and being paid and being right is very satisfying indeed. Curious to hear your reflections on that, and then we also have Oxy with his hand up.
I don't know. I think it's a hard one, right? I'm pretty sure numbers are trending up for gambling in general, right? There are many reasons for that. At least one being people feel left out. People feel like they can't keep up, and therefore they need to take increasing risks to keep up. So I think that is true. I still am of the opinion, this is why a lot of people will never ever do crypto and never ever be in this universe, is that most people don't want to gamble though. Like most people do not want to gamble. They don't want the volatility. They don't want to take the risk. Maybe more people will do that moving forward. And maybe that's what the numbers suggest, as, for example, sports gambling continues to increase. Is it definitely because like people are feeling that innate desire to gamble more to keep up? Or is it because there's so much marketing now that people are just, it's like part of their entertainment budget? Instead of going to the cinema, which people apparently don't do anymore, why not use that $50 and bet on the game this weekend instead of, like, is it just like part of an entertainment budget? I don't know. I do think that most people are not gamblers. That's like maybe like a fundamental thought. And I think it will have like profound consequences for society if we do go down the route of every single thing being financialized and people wanting to bet on every single thing. And that's actually, I don't know, maybe this is just taking this too far and thinking out loud, but like it's actually one of the reasons I would not. Like I feel like I take enough risks as it is, and I'm like placing different types of bets across various markets at different times. I can't do more, basically. Like I can't then take my free time watching NFL, for example. I can't bet on it. I can't bet on that as well when I bet on everything else. Like I just need there to be a period of time in my day that is not connected to fluctuating prices or lines. So I I would bet on that. I would bet on more people feeling like that than the other way around, actually. I don't know if that's a concrete answer or an actionable take, but that's just like one of my instincts. Ledge, curious for your thoughts. And then you said we've got Oxy's hand as well.
I don't know. I think it's COVID that changed something massively. If you just look at sports betting volume, for example, revenue in the sports betting market is projected to reach 17 billion US dollars. That is coming from Statista. Let me get that up on screen. Insane growth, CAGR, which is compound annual growth rate, to be expected from 2025 to 2030 to be at 7.5% and reach 25 mil by 2030. And basically, if you look at this chart, which shows the revenue from sports betting over the years, you can see that the pandemic years really have been the one driving the growth, and that is also was the story for Stake. Like Stake has existed before, but it really was the pandemic which helped them to grow to this insane valuation. Because all of this like gambling streaming, prediction market streaming, this did not really exist before. Like, this is a creation of the pandemic and has survived it somehow. Look at the deals that Stake, for example, did with Drake, where he got paid 100 mil a year and got like, I don't know, 20 mil as balance, sponsored balance to gamble on. And so many XQC, Trainwreck, all the big streamers who got that sponsorship by Stake ultimately had to move off Twitch to Kick, because Twitch stopped the gambling streams of casinos which are not licensed in the US, and Stake is not. It's licensed in Curacao. And this has survived. The pandemic's over, but the gambling streams are still there and are still growing. So I think something fundamentally is changing with how we look at this like financially driven entertainment, gambling, sports betting, prediction markets. And my hypothesis still is that this is the result of a like sort of growing desperation, house prices becoming not affordable compared to like yearly salaries for most people, and a bit of like a nihilistic trend that we are seeing. That's what I am thinking is happening, and why we see these massive increases. Even look at, and that's my final sentence on that, because I've been going on for a while. Look at how long it took Shuffle to hit its first 100 mil in volume. I think it took 9 months to get there. And now Yeet did 700 mil in 6 months, basically outpacing every other casino apart from Duel, I think, which is growing also like crazy. So I do think that there's like a more fundamental change happening when it comes to the gambling markets and structure of them.
Okay. Slightly differing views there, but interesting stuff. Oxy, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my man. What's your take on this prediction / gambling perspectives and how it's permeating through society?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree that there's just like an inherent change in just societal, I guess, norms as it relates to gambling. I mean, I'm sure it's the same everywhere else, but just in the U.S., the sheer amount of commercials and advertisements that you get, it's just like so normalized now. And to be quite honest, I don't know. I maybe can name like only a couple of people that I like in my life that don't gamble nowadays. Just even if it's a small amount, it's just like in some way, shape, or form, you're like gambling, whether it's fantasy football or one of the apps or what have you. It's just such a normal thing now. All that aside, though, I did want to mention something that ICO posted yesterday, I think it was, but there's a sports betting company that is using I think it was Kalshi, to hedge their positions or their bets that they have outstanding, which is like fascinating to me. That's like a use case that I never really thought of before. So like if they're heavily one-sided, the Lions starting to beat the Packers, then they can take the opposite side on prediction markets because it might not be as swayed, or it might not be as heavily weighted towards one team winning over the other. And I think it's something really interesting about prediction markets is the ability to literally hedge anything and everything,
Yeah.
right? Like you're talking about mention markets. That's insane to me that you can hedge anything that you can possibly think of. So I mean, I don't think prediction markets are going away, whether it gets integrated into sports betting apps or other casinos. I don't know. But that's just such an interesting use case that I think there's going to be others that come up as it gets more popular.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's very fair. That's why I think it is very interesting for those more niche aspects or niche bets that you can place. Definitely agree with that. Carpenter, welcome to the station, man. Good to have you back with us. Up top, what's your take here on prediction markets?
Hey fam, thanks. So last night the thread guy, he posted his whole poly market thing, and my wife was in my office watching it, and she goes, "Wait, is that real? You can do?" And my wife's like, and my cousin Megan, they end up talking too. And so she's like, "Is that real? You can do Love Island?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can do it on whatever." And so people who I feel like prediction markets are going to be bringing in people who would normally never like bet or gamble right into the gambling space, right? So like again, my wife, who is always kind of giving me crap for gambling, and not even like just like again, not big on she likes the crypto stuff, but just not the like sports betting and stuff, is
Sure.
actually thinking, hey, all this stuff, like she's really good watching like Love Island and The Bachelorette and all that stuff. And so getting her and actually catching someone's attention like that made me realize this is a lot bigger and than just the crypto space, or just bigger than the regular gamblers, right? It's going to onboard a lot more people.
Okay. Well, I'll believe it when I see it, Carpenter. You come back and tell us when your wife places her first set of bets on Love Island. That's what we need. We need confirmation of conversion there. Okay.
I'll have her stream it. I'll have her hop on a stream.
Love it, man. Appreciate the take. Mindless, hand raised. Welcome back, my man. Good to have you up with us. What's your take on prediction markets here?
Hey dudes, sorry about the disconnection earlier. Great to see you again. You've definitely got me ruffled a little bit with this one, so I'll try and be a bit tame here. I think it's a net negative for the space, and I'll explain why. For every individual you're introducing into crypto through gambling and betting, I'm not going to call it prediction markets, it's gambling. What you're doing is you're removing one person who could have invested in and held Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, BNB, even if it's $5. What you've done is you've taken that narrative and put them into a complete zero-sum game, and now they either lose or they win. Most likely they're going to lose. That $5 could have been in a spot position with a much longer term objective and a view on the space. So overall, I think net negative for the space. I don't care how many VCs and how much hundreds of millions that they've put into Polymarket, because they're always going to win. They've invested in the house always wins. Users, massive net negative for the space. Sorry.
I actually don't mind the take. I don't mind the take. The only thing I would say there is that technically we could prescribe that to anything. Anywhere we invest capital, whether digitally or actually in real life, which is not going into Bitcoin or ETH or something maybe more solid, could be perceived as like not a worthwhile investment on if Bitcoin is the standard. So I see what you mean. It's a very high bar. And I think a lot of other assets, a lot of specifically crypto assets as well, would fail that test. Go on, come back on that, and then we'll continue this conversation briefly.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. That's a good point. There is a subtle difference though, because I think the confusion is that because some tokens are risky, therefore they're the same as gambling. There's a very subtle difference between gambling and high risk investing. You buy some shitcoin, it goes to zero. You still have the shitcoin. You still have a group of people. You still have that token. Maybe you could do something with it. Probably not. It's gone to zero, but at least you have that. When you're betting on an outcome and that horse race is ended, you don't have a ticket that can run that horse race back and you can come back from it. It's completely zero sum. That's the only fundamental difference between buying a token, investing in something, even if it's high risk, and betting. One gives you absolute zero outcome. The other one at least gives you a token or something that maybe you can do something with in the future.
All right. Appreciate the thoughts, man. We're definitely like in the process of formulating our thoughts on prediction markets. So there's multi layers to it as well, right? And that's why it'll be helpful to hear from Diet as well, up with us for the first time. In your bio, it says crypto investor, sports fanatic. You got Polymarket Sport in the bio. What is your take here on prediction markets? I assuming you're leaning more into the sports side. What's your perspective here, my man? Welcome to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me up. Yeah, I'm a big sports fan way before I got into crypto. And so I kind of found a lane to talk about the two. And it just kind of worked out, and I was able to, work a partnership with the Polymarket Sports. I've always been a big fan. I grew up in Virginia, one of the biggest global lotteries that we have. And so, to be honest, most adults gamble. They don't spend a whole lot of money gambling, with scratch off tickets, lottery tickets, usually 75 cents, 95 cents, $2. So about 57% of Americans do gamble every year, just not in big ways where, they're spending a whole lot of money, but increments of sums over time. Some people spend a lot of money, just again, not always at once, because they're spending in like micro doses. And this is just a different way that people can kind of engage in prediction markets or probabilities without being in sports. I think that was one of the bigger barriers where you have FanDuels, DraftKings, and all these other ones is that, you have gambling, you have speculation, but it's a lot more nuanced to sports. And a lot of people don't really have time to fully watch sports. But my grandmother, she's a big person into politics and things of that nature. I was talking to her about the Polymarket brand deal that I recently got. We talk about politics a lot. And so those kind of props and bets that they have on Polymarket are something I can even have a conversation with her about, even though she doesn't have to bet in it, but just because she's more inclined to politics and things of that nature, she can somewhat understand the technology and articulate it. And if she wanted to participate, she could, because there are different avenues and channels that we haven't really seen in like betting and traditional betting. And so that was more so the point I wanted to just come up and say, is that like, I know it's somewhat a zero-sum game. You can't really get run.
Oh,
you just lost what you wagered against the Bucks, but you don't have to worry about a coin being deployed and someone manipulating you into buying a meme coin or anything like that. And so as the space emerges and people get more global adoption, I think Polymarket is going to be strong. Kalshi and a lot of the other prediction markets, where people who again just aren't as big into sports can still participate in the speculative assets, or just participate in the market in a different way than they haven't before.
Okay. Nicely articulated, man. Appreciate your thoughts there. I do agree, specifically for those aspects outside of sports. I like net new things. So like the election stuff is just a fantastic data, purely from an informational perspective. Seeing the money wagered and the fact that it's correct so often is something that gives me excellent data, and from that perspective I like it. And so yeah, when it's able to create like net new markets, I think that's excellent. So appreciate your thoughts, man. Really helpful to get that perspective. Maybe a final question as we close this out, Legendary, because we've kind of come to time here. A bit of a different show today. We did some of the main headlines, some price action stuff, but then maybe reflecting on prediction markets a little bit more. If people want to get exposure, obviously you've got Polymarket, you've got Kalshi, the big ones, you've got Myriad. What might we do for the rest of the year from your perspective? Is there anything to do? What would we be looking at potentially? Or is that something we need to go and research and think, okay, this is clearly a net new product in crypto that we maybe haven't got as much exposure to over recent time. Should we be doing something? What do you think?
I think if you look at the volumes and look how much is done on a week, whether that's 500 M or 2 bill, it's insane volume. And if you look at that purely from the perspective that you would want to farm these, you would take a lot of money. You would need to try to hedge between two. You would need to find ideal markets, maybe hedge against a series of sports books. That's not an easy thing to do. So at this point, honestly, my thing would be if you use Polymarket or Kalshi naturally, like just do that and continue doing that. But farming wise, I would have a hard time to make an argument to come in now and farm these. Something I've been using more recently, apart from Polymarket, is Myriad as well. There you run into the opposite situation that if you want to do bigger bets, the volume is still, the market's volume is still quite a low one. I like that for the gold bets. So at this point in time, I couldn't make an argument to farm any of the big ones, but if you're interested, use them organically, and rather do that instead of trying to find a way to like farm it.
Fair enough. Okay. Those are our thoughts for now. Interesting discussion today. I appreciated that. I thought it was excellent contributions from Mindless, Oxy, Carpenter, and Dyer. We don't normally have back-to-back contributions, but I think at a minimum, it's definitely something that sparked people's, or maybe sparked people's imaginations, got people's attention. People are excited about them in a bigger way than maybe other things before. There's clear product market fit. So worth digesting every now and again and exploring. So that's the show, guys. Reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, live on X Video, YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple and Spotify podcasts as well. If you want to support us, please do, when you go to Spotify, press the stars and give us a review and follow us, and click the subscribe button on YouTube. We are building out across all the platforms, and it's going quite nicely, and we appreciate you guys for supporting us across the board. Thanks to my co-host Legendary, as always. We hope you have a wonderful day. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.